Hello there, welcome. My name is Andy McCarran. I'm the Managing Director of SBC. I'm with me today talking about digital identity. We've got three very influential and interesting people to take a look at what is going to be a very key thing for businesses going forward. If I can ask you to introduce yourself. Caroline, would you like to go first?
Hi, Andy. My name's Caroline Steele. I am Senior Client Director at One Account. I've been in the gambling industry for a number of years, 18 odd, and I work primarily in the identity and payment space.
Okay, Ralph, can you go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ralph Topping. I've been in the gambling industry since I was 18 years of age, so a long time. I won't reveal my age on this Zoom call. But I've left William Hill, retired from William Hill 7 years ago, and I'm chairman of Superbet, which is an Eastern European organization, the dominant player in Central Eastern Europe, and enjoying that experience very much.
And Simon?
Yep, I'm Simon Bazalgette. I launched an investment and advisory business called Global Venue Services, GVS, about a year ago. But before that, I spent 11 years as the Group Chief Executive of the Jockey Club, which owns the biggest racecourse group in the UK, Jockey Club Racecourses, which I chaired. And before that, I've been involved in various media and technology startups.
So, I mean, the reason why we're all here today is Ralph and Simon, you know, after several years of butting heads in different roles within the gambling industry, you've both come on board with One Account to join their advisory board. I mean, I just wondered, you know, how that come about. I don't know if you want to take lead on that, Ralph.
I think it was through LinkedIn that I was. LinkedIn's extremely useful for people getting in touch with you with meaningful proposals and also meaningless proposals. But Ben came on and made an approach. Did I know anything about the subject? No, I didn't. Would you like to learn more? Yes, I would. And I made it a rule when I retired. I only ever wanted to work with nice people, well-run organizations, and and offer them any help I can to develop. And Ben and his team, in fact, ticked the box on all those points. So he then said that Simon was going to be part of his advisory board. I thought, excellent. Although you talk about Simon and I butting heads, that's slightly exaggerated, but so it ticked another box, an opportunity to work with Simon, a guy I've got great respect for, and all the work he did at the Jockey Club.
I mean, Simon, how was the approach to you? Was it another LinkedIn experience, or is it something?
In fact, I think I bumped into Ben when he was at Teletext a few years ago, and he reconnected. It probably was through LinkedIn, and let me know what he was up to, and he was looking for some help with it. And I thought it was it's a great product that they're developing. I think it's something I can really see the value of it. So I was very happy to get involved. And similarly, the opportunity to work with Ralph and I were on kind of other sides of a debate between racing and the gaming industry, betting industry, about how that symbiotic relationship should work. And we worked away from our different sides at that. In the end, I think with the same interests at heart, but it was we had some fairly vigorous debates during that time, and not particularly with Ralph, but certainly racing was in court with some of the betting companies and all the rest of it. So it was a pretty let me say, it was a pretty vibrant relationship. But Ralph and I always got on. We always had a good, lively debate about things. We didn't always agree, but I think we always knew we had the best interests at heart. And I think we can both see the opportunity and the need for something like One Account. And it's a great opportunity for us to work together and see having worked on the other side of the table, whether we can work together. And I think we'll make a good team.
Yeah, see what sort of practical considerations you bring in. So I guess that brings in you, Caroline, and to give us a bit more flavour of what One Account are trying to do. I mean, certainly in the physical world, we've had ID cards. In a way, there's been almost too many of them, and it's hard to verify them. But how can you bring the sort of the digital? How's One Account managing to bring the digital identity into the real world situation? What's the plan there?
Yes, I agree, Andrew. It has been very difficult to sort of spot, especially if you're in a busy betting shop and staff sort of have to look at a number of different pieces of information to check whether a card is fake or not. And One Account looked at this. And so we have a process where we send a 4-digit security code along with a QR code, which is unique and linked to location. And then when a user comes in and is checking wants his ID to be checked, all the staff members have to do is just check the 4-digit code, that it matches the code that they've been given in their premises. And the codes are changed every 30 days. So that's one way that we have, gone a long way to resolving fake ID, but also the pressures on busy retail outlets or indeed betting shops. And something else that we use is everything is done obviously online through an app, so on your mobile phone. And a viable app can only talk to a viable app. So, it's kind of like a digital handshake. So, and that also gives a level of comfort that it's very, very difficult to fake ID online in this environment.
Sure. I mean, I was speaking to Ben, who's already been mentioned. He was talking about One Account being almost like the ID gateway, where and it stops. It gives one step away from some of the age verification processes within other firms, just to make it have a central database that gives you access, seamless access to all these different age-gated areas, because you've already proved your ID to this one trusted database.
Yes, absolutely, and with that in mind, we can then, we return a lot of information. We don't just, if an operator's using our system, we don't just return a pass or a fail, for instance. We return a whole raft of different information, and this can be used in a number of ways, because obviously, as we know, digital ID and ID predominantly, can be used and should be used to help identify problem gambling, for instance. And with the number of, or the pieces of information that we give back to the operator, there can be various flags that we can work with them to sort of flag up, for instance. If somebody, we can return information on if a person has a mobile phone, whether it's contract or prepaid.
Okay.
So, for instance, if it's prepaid, it could be a situation where somebody's from a lower income bracket or indeed a minor, and therefore that should be flagged up to the operators for further information or further investigation.
I mean, Ralph, you obviously see quite a lot of potential here for some of the challenges that you used to have, well, still have, in the betting shops and online. I mean, what are the biggest what's been the biggest bits of friction when it comes to proving someone's identity, and certainly in the retail?
Yeah, age verification. If you start with that, and take a helicopter view of age verification in the UK, it's a fact that 20% of adults have no photo ID, which came as a shock to me. But when I sat back and thought about it, it's not so much a shock. So no passport, no driving license, if you're looking at the usual sources of photo ID. So if you were in a talking about a betting shop environment, let's just say that, and that 18 to 25-year-olds, if that applied to them, then they couldn't get a bet in a betting shop because there's no passport, no photo, and no passport, no driving license, and they can't prove their age. Other than going through a long-winded process, and you know, who carries a birth certificate on in their wallet, etc., etc.
I don't even know where mine is.
Yeah, well, maybe you weren't registered. There are advantages in terms of staff training. If you think about the girls and boys in betting shops, the front line workers, then they've got a hell of a job when in managing a customer and who is wanting a bet, wants to get on, and is stopped by, as they would say, bureaucracy. So this system has the advantage of the staff training is actually minimised, and what, as Caroline referred to, you're mentioning codes, ID security codes. It takes a lot of the hassle out of it. Of course, the ID security codes could be used in terminals. They are usable in terminals. They give you an instantaneous. You can bet instantaneously, and there is a linkage between the ID wallet with your account online as well. So there is this almost cross-pollination, I would call it. But if you switch then to online, you think about the online process, you have to open an account. And you have to have your age checked, and you have to be verified as to who you are. Now, with this system, a variety of data sources are checked. So you've got the traditional ones, which are the voters' roll, credit references. I think there's about three of those, and then you've got exclusive data sources. So that there's 8 sources are referenced, and to find and identify more people. So it's the success rate is up to 95%, which when I was told that figure, it kind of blew my mind. So you're compliant, you're regulated, and you're quickly assessed. And the good thing about the system at present is there's no charge for these services, which again, I can't think of anybody who's looking to verify someone online who wouldn't use this system because it speeds the whole process up. I think the frustration for clients is huge because they've proven their identity online, because it's go and find letters from this, letters from that. And with this system, it's practically instantaneous, and it's modern. You know, who wants to work with in the days of paper and pen and phoning this one and phoning that one? This is very slick and quick, and again, it's for nothing. So why wouldn't you want to use it? So that's my summary of the problems and what the system does to address them.
Okay, I mean, Simon, from your experience on the racetracks, certainly, rightly or wrongly, the Gambling Commission has been very, very keen to make sure certainly ID for the on-track bookmakers is carried out, and certainly in a real life situation, coming up to the off, things tend to move quite quickly as people tend to put bets on. I mean, is this solution something that could move as quickly and as dynamically as a betting ring on the off? Is that or is it kind of unrealistic for regulators to expect something to move that quickly?
No, I think the aim has got to be to move as quickly and as efficiently and reliably as possible. Racecourses are licensed in 2 ways. One is for the betting, both in terms of the betting ring, but also, you know, a lot of racecourses will have a betting shop, and you'll have the tote. on course, and the race courses actually have a stake in the tote. So that's an important service. And the other thing that's important from a race course point of view is is the hospitality side, the bars. And again, people tend not to have a lot of time, and if there's any need for an age verification check, being able to do it speedily and keep the service going is very important. So I know from the Jockey Club side, we put a lot of effort into speeding up service at the bar, and age verification is one of the areas that's still quite slow. So this takes that away. It's a very reliable. So I think from the racetrack's point of view, this will be hugely useful. It will help them demonstrate to the authorities, both from a gambling point of view and from an alcohol point of view, that they're meeting their obligations to protect against underage betting or drinking, and it can do it very, very efficiently, which is important in terms to keep the money flowing on the racetrack.
I suppose one of the things that a lot of people don't realise is, racetracks also attract families, so that there is a real need for doing age checks, because there are plenty in the demographic there who won't be old enough to participate in the hospitality as well as the betting.
That's exactly right. I mean, over the last few years, racing has been marketed more and more as a family-friendly entertainment, which it is. There's something going on a racetrack that can appeal to all ages, but clearly there are some which are age restricted. So being able to be very clear and reliable about making sure that only people of the right age are able to access those services, and to do so quickly is I think a really important benefit that the racetracks will want to look at.
Absolutely. I mean, not just on the racetracks. Ralph, you talk about the app sort of supporting the development of the self-service terminal. Certainly, they've been a massive success story since they were first introduced in the shops. Gosh, 10, 15 years ago. But there's still a slight disconnect between that and the over-the-counter stuff, and people, cashiers, being able to police them as effectively. I mean, where does the app fit in with making sure the self-service terminals are safe and people know? So you can be sure that the people who are playing them are eligible to play them, really.
Well, look, I think self-service terminals will continue to develop on the back of new technologies. So you have new technologies such as, just put it in one broad package, artificial intelligence systems. So you can have facial recognition on the machine, you can have age approximation technology on the machine. And I think those are the areas I think that you'll see further developments. The pandemic itself, I think, is going to change. People are maybe surprised I'm linking the pandemic to development of SSBT, but I think the pandemic.
Oh, sorry, Ralph. Can you say that again? We just got. Could you just start that again? We got an audio issue.
Okay, can you hear it now?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think the pandemic has shown that countries which have developed technologies could manage the pandemic much better than in the UK. And I think on the back of that, you'll see, and Caroline will talk later about the national ID system, or the backbone system that the government are developing. I think you will see new technologies becoming more and more accepted, which could be used in the SSBTs. So facial recognition being one of them. So the need for databases which are usable and practical and protect people, I think is going to be one of the sectors of our industry in the UK which will see rapid development, and getting to the point where you could take the FOBTs, SSBTs, and open them with digital ID, and you would be able to understand consumer behaviour much better across the sector, and be better placed to protect vulnerable players without too much intrusion into how the player uses the machine. No real delays. You're talking about an era where it's instantaneous acceptance through using technology. So I think, rather than rest on our laurels and say, isn't it wonderful, we've developed these machines over 15 years, aren't they fantastic? I think we're in an era where you don't sit on your hands and you don't rest on your laurels, and you have to look at ways in which you can satisfy a number of pressures in your business, one of which is regulatory compliance, protection of the vulnerable, protection of minors, etc., etc. So why not use the technology? Why not use the SSBTs? During the pandemic, there've been, there's been a big switch to online, which is essentially like a machine. You don't encounter a human being when you're online. So I think that kind of technology has been successful in betting shops for bet acceptance, but it can have a number of applications, and I think you'll see that as these new technologies become mainstream and become accepted.
So I mean, Simon, they've got they've had tote machines at the racecourses for some time now as well. But do you see this direction with almost the machines becoming more autonomous, with these kind of safeguards come in to be kind of the default way that people might bet on the tote in at the racecourses?
I think it will make a big difference on the racecourse. I mean, the racecourses have looked at self-service terminals for quite some time, and certainly over the last 2 or 3 years, with the change in ownership of the tote and a closer relationship with the tote, and it's always been seen as an important development on the course. And if you look in France or the US or Hong Kong, self-service terminals are a massive part of what goes on the racecourse and how people enjoy themselves and get their bets on. In the UK, we haven't been able to do it, partly because the technology hadn't yet been there, although I think it now is. But the biggest issue was the license restrictions that meant that these kind of checks had to be done in person, and therefore, they couldn't really be self-serviced. You would always have to have supervision, and that effectively meant it wasn't really viable up till now. Effectively, this technology makes it viable, and I think it opens up the opportunity to make it much easier and more attractive for people to be able to have a bet, particularly on the tote, but I think also on the fixed odds, in the fixed odds bookmakers. So I think it's a really, I think it will be a transformational development for betting on the racecourses.
Well, that's a good line to stick in the in One Account's marketing pack. I mean, Caroline, one of the things we talk about here is databases, and certainly in the gambling industry, there's a lot of talk around identification. There's talk about affordability checks in the latest review of the Gambling Act, and obviously there's also this database that the industry have at the moment with GamStop, for example. Is there a way for sort of the One Account database to communicate with GamStop? So if people have self-excluded, then it's also picked up on their identity, which then protects them from doing more damage to themselves in this way?
Yes, there is an opportunity for One Account and GamCare to work together, and this is something that we're looking into. With the One Account database, if, for instance, somebody has excluded, self-excluded, and it's known to One Account, so this person is on our database, we can then flag it up so that they can't, for instance, as we've been talking about, go and use a self-service terminal in a bookies or even on the racecourse, because it's in the kind of closed loop. We know that they have self-excluded, and if an operator is using our software for ID and age verification, we can also flag it up to them. So it's very much, and this is all in real time, so it's not a case of having to upload at the end of the day, or this is all instant. So yes, but I think it would be hugely beneficial if, we are able to proceed with GamCare or something like that to sort of help look at that
Sure.
particular self-exclusion situation. But I think also with the one account database, and again, this is a two-way street with operators, potentially with GamCare, and is that we can see the history of the user. So therefore, we can see how many times that they've placed a bet in the last, X days or hours or whatever, and also how many accounts that they have opened. And again, this could be a flag to an operator to say this needs further investigation. And we're aiming to have about approximately or more than 5 million users on our database by the end of the year, because we also have a B2C side of the business.
Okay.
So everybody can go and open a one account ID wallet now. So we have coming in from hopefully from all directions.
So you're doing a B2C campaign to get people to do it willingly, to give you a good head start to sell the B2B product.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, as ever with some of this identity stuff and the affordability stuff, it seems to work in theory, but it really needs cooperation from the industry side of things. I mean, Ralph, sharing data like that is not something the gambling industry has been particularly good at historically. Do you think there's been a bit of a sea change for that, and people are more prepared to share the data of some of their clients in this way?
I think if there's a way in which you can do it where you're not, there's no risk to any commercial entity in losing the client to another commercial entity. So there was almost an honest broker system where it was being managed and in that way to protect the commercial interests of the company. Then I do believe that that over time we can develop that system in the gambling industry, and I think the onus is on the industry to start talking about this. How you solve issues like problem gambling and underage betting not through your own channels. So at the moment, bookmakers have set up this system. It's entirely voluntary at the moment, but the user can sign up for it. So again, it's voluntary. But if you're going to move to a system where you can continue to make inroads into the reductions in problem gambling and the issues that flow from that, then I think the bookmaking industry, the gambling industry as a whole is better. Using it across the gambling industry as a whole, with the industry cooperating, gets you to the point where, as an industry, you're demonstrating that you are taking this issue as seriously. There are companies which are taking it extremely seriously. So in that sense, the industry has moved on at the company level. I think the next change for the industry is to cooperate as an industry, to discuss these subjects, to work on improving their strike rate. And there are lots of companies you could put up and say they're best in school at some of these issues, but they're not by any means finished. And you're only as good as your worst company in the sector. So that there has to be some real leadership, I think, in not only keeping this on the agenda, but developing as we go. And to my mind, you will continue to have excellent companies who put a lot of time and resource into this. But unless you do it as an industry, then I think you're still relatively weak on the subject. And I think companies like yours, SBC, I think, an obligation to lead on the subject, to get the subject discussed much more, and get industry leaders and experts like Ben Carroll to bang the drum for perhaps an industry approach rather than just a company approach. Although, you know, at the moment, a company approach is better than no approach at all.
I mean, I must admit I'm slightly sceptical from the past without, should we say, a bigger stick from government to get people to work together in companies, everybody to work together. Like you said, there's some leading lights in the sector that are forging ahead, but as they forge ahead, there's still a big gap to, like you said, the ones that are lagging behind, and that brings everybody down. I mean, I suppose that the bigger stick, should we say, the better incentive from a political level. You talked about briefly. You mentioned, Ralph, the digital identity trust framework. I mean, can you talk to that a bit, of Caroline, about how One Account is how One Account solution can help push things in that forward in the way that the government want to go, albeit slightly watered down from what the plans were maybe 12, 18 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a big task for One Account as a digital ID provider, and also the government to be able to provide a framework that's kind of robust enough so that it protects the users. And I think trust is the key word here. It's very much about sort of, you know, what data is stored and how's it used and who owns it. So, you know, that very much has to be sort of made incredibly clear. But I think with you know, the digital ID, it allows the users to have more control. So as a user, you can control what information you have stored in your ID wallet, which and it also gives, I think, a user a better experience, because, for instance, you know, with the digital ID wallet, you can buy a house or place a bet, and if you're anything like me and I have to prove my ID, you know, I'm hunting for various bits of paper all over the place. So if it's stored there and I have control, then you know, and it's a better user experience, and I can just say, yes, this is my ID, and everything's on there. And also, I think it allows people, for instance, to link their ID with various databases. So your driving license would be linked to the DVLA, you know, and other databases. So, you know, potentially it could be a system where you just literally update your One Account ID wallet, and then it's updated across. And also open banking, you know, I know the industry is talking a lot, or starting to talk now a lot about open banking. Well, your bank account could be linked to your ID wallet via open banking.
I think it's really encouraging that the government's talking about this, because when you travel a lot, and I've been lucky enough to spend a bit of time in Estonia, and I know a bit about South Korea and Taiwan, and how those countries have embraced the national ID framework, and it's second nature to people in the country. The Estonia, you can do with your national ID, you can with your ID you can do your tax returns instantaneously online with no palaver, and there's lots of other things that you can do with the in the country that they accept as the normal way of working. And so Estonia, Taiwan, South Korea, I go back to my pandemic analogy. The reason the UK bombed on test, track and trace is because they had no database. They didn't have the technology to manage it. So I'm not surprised that you know, it only half worked, because they were starting, it was a standing start. Now the national ID framework would be extremely helpful going forward in a whole number of ways. And yes, people will worry about their freedom, will worry about the Big Brother and whatever else. But if you look at it the other way around, it can help you in your daily life. It can help you with all those irritating problems that you come across, and gives you opportunities in terms of banking, as Caroline has indicated. Then it becomes a mindset. So I'm extremely encouraged by the way the government is approaching this. I think it's not only the UK government, it's also governments in Scotland and Wales that are heavily involved in the programme as well. So I'm extremely encouraged, and I think it's up to the industry and companies like yourself, Simon. It's companies like yourself, Andy, that you're not getting off with this. You need to do a lot more work in helping promote it, understand it, and the industry to think about ways in which they can use it eventually, and not just look at it from a company point of view, but from a pan-industry point of view. Because when there are issues with one company in the industry gets panned. And everybody gets, it's a one size fits all. It's the same in the racing industry. When you have one instance of one mistake by a trainer that we've seen recently, the whole industry gets panned, and that's not the case. So, but the industry has to work in a coordinated way to project itself as an industry, not just as a race course, not just as a jockeys association or trainers association. It's the whole industry has to work. And if that kind of thinking was applied to the betting industry, and then across companies, across sectors in that industry, then I think this kind of technology would work to the benefit of the industry, the companies, and also most importantly, the people who are the customers in that industry. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it, and I'm immensely encouraged that the governments are taking this approach.
I mean, with you saying the role that SBC plays in this, I mean, the one initiative we have done this year is we've created SBC Leaders, which is a group of operators, and it's just basically a talking shop for operators from all over the world, just to try and come together and discuss issues in a non-hysterical way, about how things are developing and which way the industry wants to go. So and I know an invite went out yesterday to Superbet, so if you want to give them a nudge if they want to get involved with that, that's exactly the sort of thing that we're trying to do to encourage high-level discussions about how the industry can help itself, really. But
just slightly carrying on from that, I think this whole question about the database and digital ID, I'm on the board of the EFL, the Football League, and involved in looking at racing, how they're going to get crowds back. I think having the ability to have information, particularly around COVID security and people's COVID status, vaccination, that's going to be critical to getting people back to events, whether it's racing, whether it's football, whether it's music and other events. So this kind of technology is going to be vital for that, I think, and it does require a joined up approach, because there's no point every venue doing their own thing. It should be an industry-wide initiative that everybody agrees they're going to use. That makes it easier for the consumer. Makes it much more efficient and faster, and gets people back doing what they want to do after lockdown faster than they otherwise would.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about COVID being an opportunity. A lot of people now have a digital identity that they wouldn't have before. Is now the time to strike and make? Is now the opportune moment for retail to bring in that identity requirement? I mean, how have you noticed an uptick, Caroline, during the COVID?
Not particularly during COVID, no, but we're just at the moment just about to start a trial with self-serving vaping, not terminals,
vending machines.
Vending machines, yes. And we're starting that trial, I think, in the next couple of weeks. on various sort of garage forecourts, and actually in a couple of NHS hospitals,
Okay.
so that people can, and obviously you have to be over the age of 18 for vending products. And so, you know, with a digital ID, you can age verify and buy your vending products. So in that way, yes, and that with the vending side, with the vaping side of One Account, because we're across all high risk over the age of 18 sectors. So with the vaping sector, we've been very active and very successful. And like I say, so this is being rolled out now as proof of concept, and potentially will be rolled out across many garage forecourts, NHS hospitals, you know, football stadiums, pubs, you name it.
I mean, Simon, do you see this as a good opportunity for not just gambling, for the whole retail industry and hospitality industry to embrace the digital ID while everybody's is as fresh as it possibly can be, I guess?
Absolutely. I mean, because it needs age verification anyway for selling alcohol, and as I said, I think the need to keep people safe as we come out of lockdown, and knowing whether people have vaccine or being tested or whatever other information that will be helpful to getting crowds back together, which is, you know, again, vital for any kind of event-based or sport or entertainment. Clearly the need is there, and I think that will drive some of this stuff faster than it would otherwise have happened, and hopefully bring people together in more joint enterprise in the way that Ralph has talked about the need for that to happen, and that you've mentioned. So I think that the circumstances will never be, you know, better than they are now to try and really get momentum behind these kind of technologies.
I think if you look at it from the point of view that this sits on your mobile phone, I find it very difficult to name a person that hasn't got a mobile phone. So the acceptance of the mobile phone is there. The acceptance of certain uses of the mobile phone is already there. I use mine for, in the bad old days, traveling in London, that you could use your mobile phone on the London Underground, if I'm not mistaken. That's been accepted. I don't want to carry ID cards at all in card form because I just lose them. But I'm very careful not to lose my mobile phone because of the implications of that. So we have that use, and I think I could see it again looking at Simon's talking about football. I could see it working in football where you carry the information of the football match and you get into the ground and you're already, and it's so easy. We're not talking about something that's difficult. We're talking about something that is a change. But when you look at all the change that has been accepted and embraced by people in the last 15 years through the development of the computer in your pocket, then I don't think it's that, I think we can over-talk it as an issue. I think it's an opportunity rather than a huge issue. And if it's managed and explained very carefully on the trust side of things, where the data goes and where it sits, then I think it will get accepted. It will get accepted. It will be used. It will be used. And when you're having one of these talks in 15 years, Andy, then I think people will be saying, well, what were we worrying about at that particular time? Because it becomes normalized. So there's a job to be done in getting it normalized and accepted and talked about, and the fear taken out of it. And as I said earlier, lots of companies will look at it, but it really needs us as a nation and as industries to look at this and embrace it. So it will happen. It's inevitable.
I mean, I'm wary of the time we've got now, so I'll just have the one follow-up question to everyone. I mean, there's the, I've talked about the stick from regulation, but there's also the carrot. Is a way of getting this accepted by society. I mean, I'm still thinking 20 years ago when Blair mentioned ID cards and everything went mad. Obviously, we're in a completely different situation now, where social media firms know more about people than the actual government. what kind of incentives would be possible to get people to embrace this change? Do you think that that might be better than something blanketly imposed to get people to embrace it? I mean, what's your view, Caroline?
Well, I think it's certainly ease of use, and putting the user in control of their data. Like you just said, you know, social media companies know more than governments, and you know, have more data. So it's putting, I think, the user experience, but the user at the centre of it, and ensuring that they have control over their data. I think also convenience is going to play a big deal into this, because, like I said previously, you know, if I'm suddenly asked to supply X, Y, and Z document, it takes me forever. And if it's just literally a QR code or something like that, and it's there, and I have control, and it's a good user experience, what's there not to like?
What's your view, Simon? Carrot stick?
I think it's got to be more carrot than stick. I mean, clearly regulation and licensing is going to be a key part of it, because there will be requirements, but most of that's there already. I don't think you can necessarily force behavior on people, but I think the benefits of it are just so clear, particularly as I mentioned in a post-lockdown world, that I think that people will want something that makes their life easier and convenient, gets them the products that they want and are entitled to, with, you know, without blocking up, you know, retail outlets or without delay. I think that people are going to want that. So I think it's all about the carrot, and I think convenience, as Caroline says, is going to be vital to consumer take up. But it clearly needs to be reliable, and the data needs to be protected, and all those kind of things. But those hygiene factors, I'm sure, will be there, and one account certainly provides all that. So the more convenient it is, and the quicker it makes life, the speedier and easier it makes life, the more people are going to want to take it up.
What about you, Ralph? You've seen loyalty cards in a betting shop environment. Is there enough carrot there for people to embrace them?
I think I think the discussion on this has to be framed in a positive way, and I think at the moment it's voluntary. But I do think that when we're in an age of driverless cars, when we're in an age where you can visit a hotel in Scandinavia and you never encounter another human being there other than a guest. You know, the society is changing, and we're accepting all manner of things, and I do think there's a selling job to be done on this, on a number of ways in which it can benefit the consumer and make life easier for them, and whatever else. And if you know, whole areas of our society are going to change. You look at education, and you look at what's happened at the moment. We send kids to university where it's a hit or miss if they get a great lecturer or a great professor. I think we'll see a trend in education where you stay at home, you stay in your own environment, you study at home, and you pay less to access some of the best brains in the world to teaching a subject, rather than take a chance on your local university or polytechnic. So I think society is going to change. People are going to see the benefits of technology. We're seeing them in our daily life at the moment, and I think this is just another area where a selling job has got to be done. And if incentives are going to be used, then one of those talking shops that you organise should think about the incentives and how you get people persuaded. But it's repetition, repetition, repetition. That's how we accepted mobile phones. That's why we accepted lots of other technological change in our lives. It's repetition, repetition, and taking the fear out of it. So I think there's a degree of inevitability about all this, but we have to keep talking about the subject and have to be positive about it, and not be. If you want to live in a 21st century country, then you have to embrace You have
Embrace
to
flight mode.
you have to. One of the things about lockdown is your daughter goes out and goes to the supermarket for you, and that's her just on the phone to me just now. Sorry about that. So I do modern technology getting in the way of a modern discussion on Zoom. So apologies for that.
Yeah, no problem. And on that note, I want to say thank you to Ralph, Simon, and Caroline for a great discussion. And yeah, hope you have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Bye.
Simon and I.